What is the most disturbing thing you have ever overheard a parent tell their own child in a public setting? Heard someone get really mad at their kid, 7-8, in the grocery store and scream, "This is why your dog ran away. He hated you." Like, geez lady, chill. This is why your dog ran away. He hated you. I think you may have made the wrong assumption about who the dog didn't want to deal with, ma'am. Out of all of my children, you are the biggest disappointment. I don't care for gob. I wish you were never born in a grocery store after a small child was acting up. I read this as I wish you were never born in a grocery store. I was confused for a second or two. Leaning against a telephone pole at a bus stop, just waiting for a friend to meet me there and then walk to my place. Woman and little girl sitting at the stop. Car pulls up, woman stands and looks at the little girl and says, "If I'm not back in an hour, call your grandma and tell her I said for both of you to get out of this town and disappear." Then she gets in the car and it drives off as my friend comes around the corner. This is the worst one. I dated a girl in high school who was adopted. One day I was at the mall with she and her mother when they started fighting and her mother yelled, "Now I know why your mother put you up for adoption." It was pretty much the worst thing I've ever heard. This guy I dated had an adopted sister and his mum said the same stuff. She called her a little S too. I was helping my dad fix one of his rentals. The toilet was plugged up, and we found that it was clogged with numerous action figures. My dad asked the renter's child if he was the one who put them in the toilet. To my surprise, he admitted it immediately and apologized. Immediately the renter dragged her kid by the arm into another room. We could still hear everything said, which should have been obvious to her. She said, "Don't you ever betray you or yours ever again. If someone asks you if you did something like that, you say no. You understand me?" Not me, but my mother. At the elementary school she worked at, there was one mother who constantly mistreated her son, including whipping him over the slightest things, blatantly favoring his siblings over him, and making him walk to school in the rain. My mom reminisced how she rarely saw the kid being happy. One afternoon during my mom's parent bus pickup duties, she observed the kid's mom picking him up from school and yelling at him, as usual. Through tears, he asked his mom why he couldn't just go live with his dad. "You won't even have to see me anymore. Why can't I stay with daddy?" Her answer, "Because he, the father, wants you," before slamming the car door and driving off. I still don't understand how that woman never lost custody of him. Not really public, but when I was in high school, I was at my best friend's house hanging out. He got in an argument with his mom and she got so pissed off she said, "I honestly wish I didn't have to put up with your bulls. You're only here because of divorce, yes." Meaning he was conceived when his parents had S after their divorce. I'm sitting there in stunned silence as she storms off. My friend just starts laughing as if it's the funniest thing he's ever heard. He would even proudly tell random people that he was here because of divorce Tess with this big grin on his face. But inside he cries. "Just had this happen today. Hold the dog's leash, or I'll strangle you with it." This was said by a father his 5-year-old kid. The dog was a youngish looking German Shepherd. Don't make me regret not getting that abortion. That's awful. We were getting in line to get ice cream when I noticed a $20 on the ground. I asked if it belonged to anyone. A middle-aged woman and a teenage girl, presumably her daughter, sitting near us noticed. The mother nudged the daughter and said, "I think that is yours." The daughter doesn't even look away from her ice cream. "No, it's not." The mother presses on, saying, "Are you going sure?" "I think it is." This back and forth continues. Clearly it isn't hers and the mother wants her to take the $20 anyway. Eventually the kid gives up and agrees, saying she thinks it is hers. Taking the $20 wasn't what bothered us. It was insisting that your daughter do the wrong thing, even when she clearly doesn't want to lie. I overheard a father shout, "Stop crying. Why do you have to always make everything about you? Everything is just the worst thing ever, isn't it?" At his hysterical toddler today. "You're 3 now, it's time to grow up. If you get hurt you're in trouble. If you get in trouble I'm gonna hurt you." That's a loop. One mistake and that kid is as good as gone. The other day the couple that lives in the apartment downstairs from me were outside trying to get their kids to be quiet and get in their car seats, but they were crying and arguing. The dad was going on with the "shut up, stop crying, stop yelling" stuff, but it was only making them worse. Then the mom really calmly walked over to the door and said, "I'm tired of you two fighting. I don't want 2 kids anymore. If this is what having 2 kids is like, I don't want 2 kids. I'm giving one of you guys up. You better decide which one of you is staying." It shut them up though. Was at a ghetto CVS and a parent told her child along the lines of, "If you keep crying, I'm going to pull a gun and shoot you." We have a winner. A father telling his preteen daughter she was going to grow up to be a S, just like her mother. She couldn't have been more than 11. With a father like that, she could grow up with super low self-esteem and try to find love and validation through a long line of guys. "If you don't shut the frick up, I will beat the crap out of you." This was on base and the man was yelling it into his car. I will always regret not calling the police. On the train around early December last year, I overheard a father shouting at his, couldn't have been much older than 6, son and threatening him with Santa won't bring you any presents if you keep acting like a little crap, to which the kid replied, "How can you make Santa do that?" And the dad, kneeling down to make eye contact with his son, said, "I'll wait for him to come down the chimney and punch all his freaking teeth out." That's how. I'm sure the son loved both Christmas and his dad after that. My fiance and I were at dinner last year and were seated next to this really bizarre looking family. It was busy and tables were jammed close, so we heard everything they said. The daughter had to have been around 13 and was carrying a little kid stuffed animal and holding it the whole time. The mom wouldn't let the daughter order what she wanted and started body shaming her kid, who was skinny but clearly going through puberty, telling her how disgusting and fat her hips were starting to get. Mom, by the way, was morbidly obese, of course. So the girl ended up having to split a salad with dad, while her slightly older brother had like 3 plates full of food set right in front of him. I heard one of my old neighbors say to her son, "If you keep crying like a little bee, I'll put you in a dress. You want to wear a dress? No? Then shut the frick up." I was outside gardening with my daughter, who was about 6 at the time. Her eyes just went wide and she asked me why she would talk to her kids like that. I didn't really have a good answer. "Stop mucking about, ya little C, or I'll freaking thrash ya." A mother to her child while walking them to school, in front of all the other kids and their parents, was in a low-income neighborhood in Australia. That is so Australian. If she said she was going to give him a good hiding, it would be even more bogan Australian. I always tell my 1-year-old I am going to give her a knuckle sandwich if she whacks me with America again. She then laughs and donks me on the head with it, threatening to bite her little toesies off. Doesn't work either. Thank you. I needed a comment in this depressing thread to make me smile. Also, another one was, I was at a Kroger, browsing through an aisle. 2 young men were with an older man, in guessing their father. One of them was talking about how he beat the crap out of his girlfriend recently, and how he felt like a terrible person about it. The older gent puts his hand on his shoulder and says, "Son, boys will be boys." The aisles of Kroger. Such a mystic land. This actually was said to me. I'm a dancer and used to compete on teams and as a soloist. I don't compete anymore. College probs. One day, I was competing my solo and just touching up my makeup in the dressing room where I accidentally was in the way of a mom and her daughter who was my age. I said, "Sorry, I'll be out of your way in a sec." And the mom says I'm totally fine and something about sharing a bathroom with siblings. I laugh and say, "Oh yeah, I get you. I have 3 younger siblings myself." And the mom says, "Really? I would have stopped after you," right in front of her kid. I smiled uncomfortably, grabbed my bag and moved to the other side of the room. I used to work in a kindergarten and we had a kid around 3yo who wouldn't and mostly couldn't talk yet. He said a few words at home, but while in kindergarten only made noises and gestures to get us to understand, but was making progress and we were getting medical help at the request of the mother. At this time it was popular between the older kids to go to each other's places after kindergarten, and this kid really wanted to join that. But the mother's answer? When you start talking to your friends, you can go to their place after kindergarten, and no surprise, all our progress was lost and locked himself in even more. I was in shock. I just couldn't believe what I heard. This woman was so unhappy with her son not talking, nagging day in and day out that we must help her, and she just throws every bit of progress out the window. It was so sad. Not someone else, but me. When I was 11 or 12, we went to Disney and my dad kept bugging me about why I looked so unhappy. I wasn't. I just have a resting bee face. Eventually, we were at some chicken restaurant surrounded by tons of people and he called me an ungrateful bee in front of 30 people. Da frick dude. My grandpa was like that. He wonders why I don't visit. Just a month ago me and my boyfriend went to Disney World in Florida. While eating lunch in a quieter, more isolated area, we saw a dad drag his 8-ish-year-old daughter to a table near us and in hushed tones but loud enough for us to hear, he said, "You don't deserve to be here, you ungrateful bee." The rest of the family arrived shortly after with trays of food and the dad pulled out a tin-foil wrapped sandwich from the mom's purse and threw it at his daughter while the parents and 2 other kids ate the burgers and fries from the quick serve restaurant. I just felt sick and wanted to cry. That's fricked up, but for the sandwich maybe the kid's a really picky eater, or allergies. Wasn't disturbing, just funny, and vaguely archist. I was iced in Birmingham, Alabama earlier this year. While I'm getting some continental breakfast, a man walks up to the coffee dispenser with his daughter, of about 4 years of age. He says to her, "Honey, always like your coffee how you like your men, light and sweet, nothing like vague Alabaman racial bias instilled at a young age." Saw a 2-3-year-old kid lagging behind his mom. She turned to him and said, "Get up here, Miss Earthwicker." Does she? Surely she. Whoa. I overheard a mother tell her son that he'd have to hold it until after church was over. The kid was obviously desperate to go, and the preacher had only just begun his sermon, but the mother was intent on making him stay for the entire service. I'm the parent in this one. My son has one of those kitchen playsets and various toy utensils, food items, and refers to playing with the set as home living. An awesome name for it he picked up at daycare. One day during the height of his infatuation with home living, we were at a store and wasn't following me, or kept grabbing stuff off the shelf, or was in general engaging in a behavior that I needed him to correct. So I told him, "Son, you need to listen to me or you are going to lose your home living privilege." It pretty quickly dawned on me that without context that must have sounded pretty concerning to folks around us. My dad used to be a police officer. I was at the grocery store with him and a woman in line near us had a kid who wouldn't stop crying. She pointed in our direction and told her kid my dad would take him to jail if he didn't shut up. I like to hear the stories about officers who correct parents like this in front of their kids, reinforcing the notion that the police are meant to be agents of protection, not to instill fear. I was in a Walmart about 10 years ago. I saw the exact moment a woman grabbed her small son, about 6, by the arm, as he was crying, and she shook him a few times while yelling, "Break yourself, fool." Well, I for one pity that fool. I was at a condo community pool and overheard children berating this Asian couple. The kids were straight up telling them to go back to China and using racial slurs. The Asian couple were infuriated and told the kid that he's being archist. They then turned to the mother. Instead of apologizing, the mother told the kids to continue what they were saying and that the Asian couple had no right to tell the kids off. I had no idea what was going on until I put the pieces together an hour after the event. Still makes me mad to this day. After a day of whale watching, my GF and I stopped off in Buena Park to have dinner. We were sitting in a booth by a window where she could watch the rain. A homeless woman came up the sidewalk, pushing a shopping cart overloaded with stuff. She was wearing a halter top and stretch shorts, but it's cold and not really cold out. As she is passing, one of her cart wheels hits her something and her cart almost tips over. She frantically struggles to keep it upright and only loses the rolled up blankets and some clothes. She was trying to pick up her stuff, but it wasn't easy with the rain coming down. I heard laughing and turned to see a family, mom and dad with 2 kids, a boy and girl looking to be 12 and 9 respectively, watching the woman and having a grand time at her misfortune. Dad pointed at the woman and said something, making everyone roar with laughter. Then the daughter said something. I couldn't hear everything, but the parents were obviously teaching their children to look down and even ridicule the less fortunate. I will not allow you to go to college. I'll take a wild guess. The parents are religious fanatic and the kid's a girl. This person wasn't talking to the kid, but he was right next to her listening. I heard someone tell her friend that her kid would never move out and he'd be that loser living in his parents' basement his life, right in front of him. I guess this isn't that disturbing as much as it is WTF. I once overheard a woman yelling at her toddler for crying. She say, "Shut up, why are you crying, why are you acting like such a baby?" IDKB, maybe because it's less than 2 years old and that's how it communicates with the world and lets you know something's not right. Just last night and my so's very Christian parents' house. His mom to their 27 years old daughter who is dating for the second time in her life. That sounds to me like you are pursuing him, and I don't like that. Eye opener. It wasn't, like, verbal, but I once saw a kid and his mom at a Toys R Us and the child touched one of the displays. His mother panicked at this and yanked his hand away and held it up in the air as she ran him over to the bathroom, presumably to wash his hands. It was so dramatic. Bro, pretty much everything in this thread is things my mother said to me as a child, or rather screamed at me, except the swearing. She will never swear. Swearing is punishable by a heck of a beating in her book. Some of the things she thinks are more acceptable to say to a child than a swear word include, "I've had enough of you. I'm having you put in a home." Picks up phone and pretends to dial. "Stop that noise or I'll beat you black and blue." I was crying because I was 4 and my brother had just thrown me, literally, out of a bunk bed. I'd already told her this. "You'll be. No wonder all your boyfriends leave you. They find out what you're really like." I was 15-16 and very, very insecure. If it wasn't for me, you'd be starving on the streets because nobody else would want you. If you don't stop complaining, I'm going to tell that policeman what you're like at home and he'll throw you straight in prison. Other adult wouldn't put up with this behavior. She'd have got rid of you long ago, and so on. "I hope you bleed next time." Did the kid respond with, "Ain't got time to bleed"? My brother's GF said to her son, "I don't know what I will do with myself when you got to school. I might kill myself." She has actually said this a few times in public. "I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it." My own mother on several occasions. As much as I can't stand kids, this pee me off. In Walmart checkout line, go figure, some B looked at, I'd guess, her 5-year-old and told him that she'd strangle the breath out of your worthless butt if you don't shut the frick up. Most disturbing to me isn't the nasty or violent stuff. It's the subtle everyday things that bit by bit make the child view themselves as a bad person. If you tell a child they're naughty or difficult or awkward or whatever every day for years, that child is going to grow up to be those things. It's why when I'm at work, I work in a preschool, I'm careful to chastise children's actions, not the children themselves, when they do something wrong. You've been spotted by the doggo of studying. Like this video for good grades for the next 2 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.